Is it working?
It is working.
It is working.
Welcome back to part 2, where we've discovered that iPhones have no storage.
Well, okay, they do.
Just not mine.
You have thousands of photos on your thing.
I have pictures of.
Why don't you just move them to the cloud?
Because I don't know. I'll figure it out after this. Anyway.
This wig and I.
Are you enjoying your wig?
Kind of, in a weird way. If you like the aesthetic of Professor Snape ate fucking Molly Weasley, sure.
So this is going to be part 2 video.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Do you want to split screen it so we can see both?
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember how to split screen? I think I taught you.
You did teach me.
I did teach you.
It was something to do with like throwing it, right?
Well, you don't throw a window.
Well, I'm not going to throw my computer, but I mean, we
could. A little
could.
further over. There we go.
Kind of. Okay, there.
Yeah!
Okay.
She did it. I'm so proud.
Do things. All right. So.
Back to it.
Where we've started is the creature is now telling his own story.
Yes, lovely.
So the creature says that everyone's afraid of him because he looks dead. And I mean, that's kind of fair.
Yep.
So he's been hiding out in an abandoned structure connected to this cottage where a poor family starts hanging out. And he's collecting firewood for them and taking care of them. And he's observing them. So what he does is he finds a stack of books, teaches himself to read. Pretty cool. Then he starts listening to one of the people in the house teach somebody from another country how to speak English. So he's got this really weird version of Duolingo that he's learning. He ends up approaching the poor family and befriending the dad because the dad is blind. Unfortunately, this doesn't go great because the kids come home and they freak out and they run out of the house and then give the property back.
Yeah.
Say, we're good. We're going to move. So the creature is really upset because, you know, he thought he had friends and now he's been abandoned again. And he goes, okay, so I have all this paperwork left over from my creator. I'm going to find him. And he finds out all about Victor and where he's from and what he's doing from this whole collection of journal notes and entries. So he goes to where Victor is from and kills his brother.
Yes.
He runs across this kid. This kid's really willing to show him everywhere around. And then he goes, oh, yeah, you know, I'm so-and-so Frankenstein, William Frankenstein. And he goes, oh, you're my creator's family. I'm going to kill you. But then he sets it up so it looks like Justine killed him because there's like a little brooch thing and leaves it there. So instead he goes, you know what? I'm going to find my creator. Now that I've wreaked enough havoc to cause some problems, I'm going to make him create a creature like me so I'm not alone.
A lady monster.
A lady monster. Then he tells Victor, if you don't create this, I'm going to kill everyone you care about. Have the capabilities.
Yeah.
So Victor takes the story back over here and starts talking about how he told his dad he has to travel.
Yes.
And that he's going to go work elsewhere with his friend.
Yes.
And instead he goes to Orkney, which is a series of islands up at the top of Scotland, and goes to one island that's mostly abandoned and says, hey, I'm going to rent this cottage. It's falling apart. That's fine. It's cool. Just fix the door. We're good. And he starts working on this creature. So he's almost done, and he starts having this huge crisis of conscience about, oh my gosh, what if they create monster babies?
Yes.
What if I bring the end of the world about? So he destroys the female creature just as the other creature shows up.
Yeah.
Which
is a really unfounded fear, because like realistically they wouldn't be able to.
They wouldn't be able to. Yeah. I mean, at that point in time, and when Mary Shelley was writing it, she had nobody had any real concept of how the uterus worked after death, if at all. Which it doesn't.
I think they did.
Did they?
Well, yeah, because you get that with, like, Bram Stoker and, like, Vampire Progeny.
Yeah, but that was through blood.
Yeah, and like, disease. You steal the children.
You steal them. It's fine. The creature goes, all right, no big deal. I'll see you on your wedding night. So Victor bails out, takes the body parts with him, puts them in a basket with some stones in it, and goes to throw it overboard of the ship. He gets caught in a storm, and his ship ends up in this port in Ireland, which is great, except that when he lands there, somebody's been recently murdered, and so they all assume Victor did it, because he was out on a boat, and this person came from a boat, and they found their body. So he ends up going to jail, having a complete breakdown again, having to be nursed back to health, and then having everybody go, well, you know who died, right? Show him the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his friend, Henry. So that's not great.
No, it's not.
Bonus surprise death. What are we at? 3 officially?
That's what the notes say.
If we're not counting, I don't think he had to kill the women parts to make the creature.
Okay, 3.
So officially 3.
3.
So Victor, when he's in his breakdown in jail, his dad comes to see him and is like, "It's okay, we're gonna figure this out." Victor is found innocent of the murder because he really couldn't have been there, and he goes back home to where he basically says, "Okay, our whole lives I was supposed to marry Elizabeth, so we're gonna get married."
Mm-hmm.
They go to get married, and true to his word, the creature shows up on their wedding night and doesn't kill Victor, who's sitting up all night with a gun. He kills Elizabeth.
Yes.
Which we're now at 4.
Yes.
Victor's dad has a small breakdown over this and dies, so we're at 5.
That's not creature related.
That's not really creature related. That's emotionally created. It's kind of like Lucy Westenra's mom dying from her heart disorder.
Yeah.
Got a little scared. So Victor ends up going, okay, well, I've got nothing left. I'm going to chase this creature. And he chases him to the North Pole, where we end up with Walton, who says, okay, that's a really interesting story. I'm going to write this down. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Frankenstein's like, let me edit it for you.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting.
That was interesting. You're right.
So Victor dies from exhaustion. And then the creature shows up on the ship and says, this was my creator. I'm going to go into the wild and kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ship gets out of its little hold and they go back because Walton's like, forget this. I don't need to be famous.
True.
The end.
The end.
It's awkward.
It's not that awkward, is it?
I'm like, keep looking up. I'm like, all right. There are a lot of themes. There's a lot of history. There's a lot to get into, so we're going to go into that.
Yeah, I think we'd be wrong to not start with Prometheus, honestly. So, Prometheus is the...
Is it recording?
I think it is.
Did it move to video and
It's still recording.
It's still doing. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. So Prometheus is the subheading of the work, and the legend of Prometheus goes basically Prometheus is a titan, and he has fire. Fire is great. He wants to give humans fire, but Zeus is like, that's a bad idea. So Prometheus is like, you know what, screw it, let's give humans fire. Zeus is like, I hate that idea. You're not punished. So Prometheus stays in Tartarus, chained to a rock, where an eagle has to peck out his liver every day, which is a lot. So the capital R romantics of this time really liked Prometheus, because it's like, oh, look at this guy who's bringing humans knowledge and stuff. That's really, really cool. That's awesome. We should do that. But most people kind of read as like, this is bad and cautionary. So,
I mean, at that time period, they were very much about the what can we find out. Mary Shelley's husband actually got kicked out of Oxford for writing a paper about how atheism was important.
Yeah, a contemporary called Percy Shelley and Lord Byron from the Satanic School of Romanticism.
I don't know that they could be devout anything, though.
Well, but they had a boner for Milton as well.
That's true. But to be fair, a lot of people had a boner for Milton. The creature has a boner for Milton.
Yeah. He reads Plutarch's Lives in Paradise Lost, which, you know, is important.
Which is kind of surprising. I'm like, couldn't get something a little easier. I mean, I can't imagine trying to learn to read from Paradise Lost.
I mean, there was no, like, if you give a mouse a cookie back then.
That's fair.
What was the easier book? The Bible?
No.
Exactly.
Did you have the primers with, like, the A, B, C, D?
I guess. Good lord, why? So yeah, that's
the
Prometheus.
Goblins had a library.
True.
Okay,
so
anyway.
That's Prometheus. I would not like an eagle pecking at my liver.
No, especially if your liver grew back every day and you didn't get that sweet, sweet release of death.
Yeah, I think that was always the part for me that scared me. Was my liver growing back.
Which I know a lot of people who wish their liver would grow back now, but not...
Hello?
Hi. My phone likes to do things when it feels like it.
It's like, hello. I mean, technically, the liver is one of the only organs that does regenerate. So...
And I've put it through a lot.
That's not where your liver is.
This is right in here, I thought.
No!
Or here.
That's... Ma'am!
Isn't it, like, over a bunch of your organs?
Yeah, but, like, further back.
Further about.
You
Okay.
were like,
Hi.
you were.
I did not take anatomy. I know where my heart is.
Okay, that's great. I don't want to be the Victor Frankenstein.
I don't want to be. Well, I think it's really interesting too because now we use it as this mad scientist trope, but scientist wasn't even a term until like the late. I have it noted somewhere.
Bessie, didn't this give rise to the term scientist?
Somewhat. It didn't really become a thing until 1833, and it was first published in 1818.
Yeah, like this gave us the word scientist.
Well, no, scientist wasn't even used in this book.
Well, it gave us the idea.
So, I mean, you had this, you had Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you had all
Yes.
these things where people started to go, is science dangerous?
Yeah.
Because a lot of what they had was, you know, this fear of reanimation, which was really a discussion of things like galvanism, where they would apply electricity to
We're going to talk about galvanism, don't
But-
worry.
But yeah, I mean, everybody still had this kind of concept of this fear of death
Mm-hmm.
because life was brutal, nasty, and short, to coin somebody else's
But
phrase.
also really inconvenient.
Super inconvenient.
Death is so inconvenient.
So you have this combination of fear of death. You have this burgeoning area of science where people are
Mhm.
just starting to learn about things. You have had the Enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this whole kind of concept of, is science moral?
Yeah.
Is reaching out to expand our choices moral? Are we playing God?
Yeah. There's really something to that because at that time these scientists really were doing some revolutionary things. So there was a lot of concern that they were going too far. And realistically, they probably did. Like we'll talk about galvanism. So they probably did go too far. But really the romantics, capital R romantics, really liked it. Because it fed this idea of like human endeavor and stuff.
Well, this was also the era of body snatching.
Yes.
This was the era of you only got a certain number of corpses per year based on who had been executed. And then you had people who would go about and dig up bodies and sell them back. And
Yeah.
you had Burke and Hare who started killing people because it was easier than digging up a body.
Accurate.
So when Mary Shelley lived in Scotland, she would have seen some of this probably in the news.
Probably.
So, should we talk about being rejected by your parents?
Yeah. So Mary Shelley has a bit of a thing with parenthood. Her mother died 11 days after giving birth to her. She also suffered the loss of a child.
Mhm.
So there's this whole weird relationship to parenthood.
Oh, and her dad kicked her out too after she started having an affair with Shelley.
I mean, to be fair.
Oh, there's a lot of to be fair.
Yeah,
It was not a wise choice.
Yeah, to be fair. So this idea that Victor makes this creature, he creates life by ignoring the usual flow of things, and then rejects it. That's probably the strongest moral statement in the book, that you're not supposed to do it this way. That you should create life the normal way, which is, I guess, missionary with the lights off.
I mean, close your eyes and think of England.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, you will see that theme again and again: rejection and isolationism.
You're going to see that a lot, honestly.
So you have notes in here about the glorification of the male form.
Yeah. Victor really does try to make like a Ubermensch kind of, but he isn't making a monster. So there's kind of a, that would be what one would consider a theme.
So he didn't make Rocky from Rocky Horror?
No.
No gold little bikini bottoms?
No.
Could there be though?
I mean,
I think it would kind of offset that yellow skin though.
yeah, it would. So there's this weird inversion of the glorification of the male form, but also the way Victor talks about it, like while he's doing surgery and stuff, is like kind of gross and sexual. I like it, but it's gross and sexual.
He's making a man with blonde hair and a tan. Sorry, it's the season.
Not sure.
Sure. No, it's always the season for
That's
Rocky
like, there's
Horror.
not really a season.
I mean,
If you're gay enough, there's not a season.
It's always time for Tim Curry, right?
Mm.
All right. Theoretical readings. There are a lot of theoretical readings for
Yeah,
this.
I even left out the feminist reading, which I mentioned with the whole, like, having children without the woman part. And honestly, Victor seems to not like women very much.
No, which is interesting.
Is it?
Because it was written by a woman.
That doesn't... Women cannot like women.
I mean, she did have to deal with her sister Claire Claremont a fair bit.
Yeah, like, women cannot like women. Like, honestly, men don't write women well, but women also don't write women well.
That's fair.
Yeah. But there is this really, really fun queer reading to it about going through all the trouble of making yourself a man. Because realistically, wouldn't you first make a woman? Why would you make a man first?
I mean, technically in the Bible, God made a man first.
Yeah, technically, but then he immediately followed it up with someone else. Victor, because of, like, repulsion, kind of stopped there. So there is this, like, interesting, like, sexuality metaphor to it that I just kind of like.
There were no monster babies. There could have been monster babies.
There really couldn't have been monster babies.
No, you'd have to, like, make them from scratch, and that's a lot of work.
I mean, if we're making homunculi, like, there's better uses. So, I quite like the queer reading. It's also very, very popular on the internet.
Yeah, so if you look it up, you can find it.
There is so much smutty fanfic of Victor just being a hungry twink going after this giant monster.
For real?
Yes.
Wait, doesn't that kind of, like, go into incest a little bit, too, since he did create him?
No. It's more of a self-cest, almost. It's weird. I can provide links if you guys would like.
Amanda, our Smutlink champion.
I mean, am I not reviewing Curvy?
Oh, that's fair.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a lot of historical influences for this that would have been in Mary Shelley's mind at the time.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about Galvanism. Galvini, who starts with Galvanism, was insane and basically decided that we can use electricity to animate bodies. That works in theory. The implications of that no one thought through. So one of the first humans he wanted to bring back was a murderer.
Which is not a great plan.
Yeah, because double jeopardy is a thing. So he didn't, well, no, he did get his murderer. And he did succeed in moving some of the body. The guy did stay dead, though.
Didn't they have, wasn't he, like, on the scaffolding for a long time, and they, like, did some other stuff, too, before they
like, super made sure he was dead and not coming back. So, galvanism works by using electricity to stimulate muscles, because electricity is what moves and powers our muscles. So it can give you a small contraction of the muscle, but it's not going to, like, fully reanimate, almost never. Now, if you've seen someone, like, shocked back to life, that's using similar galvanic principles, but that has to be on such super specific conditions.
And it's not always successful.
No, it's actually not successful a lot.
Because it's supposed to stimulate the cardiac muscle. But...
Yeah. And honestly, most of the electricity he was using was probably too much, would just fry tissue. So, that's galvanism. It's insane. And,
plus, when you're using it on, like, frog tissue, the legs are going to jump real far, real fast. Probably not so much with a human being.
I mean, like, if you read contemporary accounts of what happened during Galvini's little thing, he got some good movement out of that body, but not reanimation movement.
Yeah, your brain is dead for, what, more than 10 minutes? You're probably not coming back?
Right.
Or did I take that from Sleepers? Not
I
Sleepers.
mean, you probably... That guy wasn't coming back. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. He was dead.
Yep.
I've already talked a little bit about medical schools, resurrection men, grave robbing. Lots of grave robbing at this time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you weren't making very much money working a steady job.
No.
And it was just there. I mean, they weren't using it.
True.
Which is really funny when you hear people kind of talk about the same thing with organ donation now, where they're like, I don't want anybody stealing my organs and selling them on the black market. Pro tip, that doesn't happen here.
No.
That happens in India. But that's because they tell women that they're gonna, give them $6,000 for their kidney.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, that's also like that's tricky colonialist language, because it happens everywhere.
Yeah,
we tend to sensationalize it when it happens in other countries.
I'm just saying it's probably not going to happen if you have an organ donation card. They're gonna make sure that you are really truly dead.
Yes, that's true.
I know a lot of nurses.
Yes, that is true.
All right. Tell us about the end of Romanticism.
So we talked a little bit about the capital R Romantics, and this was during that time period. Romanticism as a notion really focuses on, like, the sublime and human endeavors and terror and awe. Like I said, Percy Shelley was a romantic. Byron was a romantic. this book comes out right towards the end of it because we have like science and stuff that creates like a new awe and a new shock. So really, you can read this as like one of the last great romantic novels, which is fascinating to me. That you still get a little bit of that like, oh, look at how cool nature is, but also like, gas, scary monster man.
I know Mary Shelley was very into ghost stories, which was something that her dad didn't want her to be into.
Yes.
All right. So we do have a lot of questions from listeners. Well, a handful of questions from listeners, which is awesome.
We do.
So the first question, is Frankenstein even relevant anymore given today's scientific and morally ambiguous environment?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. There's, whenever we talk about like GMO stuff, which I think is hilarious, people's fear of chemicals and things like that, we still have allegories to this, and it's stupid. A lot of it's rooted in stupidity, honestly. Hank Green has a great shirt that says everything is chemicals, which is true. Like, or well, like, it must be organic. Like, it's rooted in ignorance. Genetically modified doesn't mean evil.
And that's one of the reasons that a lot of the scientific community does have a lot of ethical principles at this point in time where they are very focused on, okay, what is the possible outcome of this? What are we looking at here before they move forward with something?
Yeah, Last Week Tonight has a great episode on that. So, and then morally ambiguous environment, I don't really think we're that morally ambiguous. Like,
I think it's just more obvious now because we have things like social media. We have a 24-hour news cycle. We see how people misbehave more regularly than we would if we lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere.
Right. If anything, I think we're more morally outraged now. We're just quiet about it in weird ways. So, yeah, I do feel like it's relevant. I think kids should still read this. But I think you need to think about why you're reading it.
Right. And I do think the way this is written, it can be really hard for younger folks to handle because it's, just the language and a lot of it's not as easily as accessible. The themes are still very accessible, and I think if you have a solid teacher, if you have somebody who's willing to explain it to you, then you are just fine.
There was a Kids Illustrated version that I read when I was a kid that I liked a lot.
We also have, do you think modern science, current practices, and exploration areas have ignored the parable that is Frankenstein? Do you see the human race violating God, quote, with the areas that we're trying to explore or invest in?
So weirdly enough, I kind of do. And like that weird Catholic part of me does worry about that kind of stuff. Like that whole story about like China being able to like clone dogs. That made me anxious. For like a lot of reasons. Like, I'm sorry your beagle died. That dog needs to stay dead. Like, we need to stop.
Did you freak out about Dolly the sheep?
No! Because that was a sheep.
Dolly the sheep is actually really cool. If you go to Edinburgh, they have a science museum and it's preserved.
Yeah, but like, so do I think that science has gone too far sometimes? Sure. But, I mean, I also then trust that scientists aren't going mad and making weird monster fuck robot things.
I mean, there are real dolls.
Yeah, but like, that's mostly... Okay, so one of the jobs that I would love in the future is being like an eternity for like AI sex robots. Because, so here's the thing, like, if you program a robot to not consent, is it still a crime?
That's a fair question.
Thank you. Like, you looked at me like I was crazy for a second, but like...
I was like, where are we going with this?
But like, that's like one of the things, like the morality of like sex and robots is like a thing that I'm very into.
Well, a lot of where we see cases like with Monsanto and stuff like that, where they're stepping over their boundaries, it's capitalism.
Yeah, so like where science usually goes wrong is capitalism.
How much money can you make off this? There were no flipper babies. There were a few flipper babies.
Yeah, so you're right. Like where we see science gone awry is usually money, but like scientists, like in a pure scientific environment, I don't have a lot of worries.
And I feel like science also helps us find some solutions to things that really we shouldn't be dying over. One of the really interesting things, if you look at the Flint, Michigan water crisis, it was a doctor who figured out that kids were getting lead poisoning.
Right.
And it was because of the switch that they made to save money from where they were previously getting water to a new source that was breaking down the lead piping.
Right.
So again, it comes back to money, but we do have scientists that are stepping in going, you shouldn't die from this.
Well, that was also a lot of racism.
Oh, tons of racism.
That was also a lot of no one cares about black people.
I mean, should we have like gotten out the bingo cards? Because I feel like,
yeah,
for real.
Like that's also a lot of no one cares about black people.
Yeah. So, this one I see too a lot. Is the creature worthy of sympathy, or is he using his existence to justify his serial killer nature?
So Percy Shelley says something about this when he read the book, where he says that the monster is damned to circumstance that created in him a hideous misanthropy and revenge.
Well, Percy Shelley also was trying to justify his existence 9 times out of 10 constantly.
Okay, look. You can go over your hate boner with Percy Shelley in a minute.
Alright.
But, like, okay, that is like a big nature versus nurture question. Would he have been a monster if he just kept reading, like, Plutarch's Lives? I mean, technically, yeah, but it doesn't have to, I don't know. It makes me feel uncomfortable as a question.
There's a lot to unpack with this. I do feel like your experiences do shape you, but I do feel like jumping in and being like, oh, I'm a serial killer because my life was hard.
Like, that's, so, like, I actually had a really interesting conversation on, like, what the media does, like, portrayals of violence. Mostly because I was watching Law & Order. Because there was a Law & Order episode where, like, a slightly older kid, like, rapes a bunch of his, like, classmates.
Oh.
And he's like, well, I saw it on, like, a movie. And I know what movie he saw. He's talking about The Shawshank Redemption. He's like, yeah, the guy in prison, he had sex with all these people, and no one made fun of him. And it's like, okay, kid. It's like the argument was that this kid was legally insane because media told him to be a rapist, basically. And it's like, that's such a gross argument because, like, technically, yeah, the way that movie frames sex and sexual violence is a problem. But also, where were your parents?
And something I've seen too is I've known quite a few folks who have been physically or sexually abused. And they're normal, cool people. They've worked through their shit. They've done what they need to do. They're living in existence, and they don't go out and stab people.
Yeah.
And then you have people like Charles Manson, whose mother was a prostitute and kind of ignored him, and his like family made him dress up like a woman. And they're like, "Oh, well, I can truly see he had a hard life." It's like, so you get to be a cult leader?
But I mean, but then you get like Eileen Wuornos, who was abused.
That is true.
So, like, I think it depends on where you sit on it. Like, I don't know. Yeah, your background can make you monstrous. But I do think that does come down to individual, what you do with that. I just write really gross fan fiction. And wear wigs.
Amanda had to do my wig for me because I kept screwing it up.
I mean, you weren't screwing it up. I can just do it better. I can just do it better.
Okay. Notes on the text.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, this is the first work of science fiction. Let's just be honest. Also, one of the greatest horror novels. It's so important, you guys. And it's gothic, and it's weird, and it's romantic. I love it.
So, if you get a chance, there's a book called Monster, She Wrote, and it's about women in horror and science fiction.
Yes.
And it is incredible. They start with, influences that would have influenced Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley really does bring us to that first science fiction book, because it's science fiction and fact together, and it's just her mind went a whole new place.
Yes.
What's really fascinating about this is that it's not just the book that has become mythical, it is the circumstances of how it was written.
Which is one of my favorite things.
It's like, if you take an English course in college and they're talking about Mary Shelley, they tell you about the party.
Yeah, so the legend of how Frankenstein came to be. So Mary Shelley, who was not Shelley at the time.
She was still Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin.
Yes. Percy Shelley, who was an asshole. Sure. Lord Byron, yes, that Lord Byron.
That asshole.
And Claire Claremont, who was Mary's stepsister.
And John Polidori, who was Byron's doctor.
Yeah, who wrote The Vampire, which Stoker also stole from.
Mm-hmm. Which Byron's name got posted to.
Yeah, so Stoker is just a thief. Cool. They all are like, let's go do a bunch of drugs in Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the lie? Well, they get to Geneva and it rains.
And it rains a lot.
A lot.
Because it wasn't this called the the era where there was no summer or something like that.
Yeah, a volcano erupted and there was it's a whole thing.
And so there was a lot of rain.
Yeah, like torrential rain. So like let's do a NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, basically.
Let's all write a thing. So Percy Shelley and Lord Byron wrote some poems that are probably gross and sexist. Lie. Where is it?
No.
Claire Claremont did some stuff. The Doctor wrote The Vampire, and Mary, in like a night or two, wrote Frankenstein, and she was 18, and I hate that. And by hate, I mean I love it, but like I hate it.
So the rumor is that she had this dream, like she had already lost her first child with Percy, who, in all defense, they did kind of have to move in the middle of the night during a rainstorm right after the kid was born.
Yeah.
So, but Mary had this dream that she saw a man performing these experiments, and she had been to all sorts of things where they had done like science lectures and shown galvanism and things like that. And so she had this just vision of this man working on a body and the body coming to life.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh. And I mean, she'd had many dreams about her child coming back to life and things like that.
Yeah, that it had only been cold and she rubbed it against the fire and it came back to life.
Yeah. Like,
thank you,
really,
quotes.
really hard. So you see a lot of that too in, you know, the way Victor is handling death, which is not well.
Not good.
And so she ends up writing this story, and it becomes so much more than what it was intended.
Yeah. So that's the legend. It's great. I think they do sell a lot of drugs.
There are some questions of whether or not there was an orgy. Depends on which English major you're learning from.
Who has proposed that?
A lot of people.
What deviants?
A lot of people.
Yeah, I think Drunk History said that too.
Yeah, Drunk History. Their episode on Frankenstein is amazing.
We'll probably link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So that's the legend.
Yeah. So there is actually a movie that just came out in 2018 about Mary Shelley where they feature, Percy Shelley getting out of the carriage and Lord Byron coming up and just grabbing his face and kissing him. And I was like, I mean, probably fair.
Yeah, that sounds pretty on the nose.
Hi. Do you try not to cough anymore?
What do you think I've been doing this entire podcast?
So, Mary Shelley's got a pretty rich history, and we've kind of alluded to some of this.
The daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft. Can we start there?
Yes. So, yes, daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft, who was a big-time feminist at the time. We're talking, like, late 1700s. We're not talking, like, 1960.
The feminism took her.
So, Mary Shelley was born on August 30th, 1797. Died February 1st, 1851. Her mother is the one who wrote Vindications of the Rights of Women.
Which is very good, and you should read it.
It is really good, and it's surprisingly accessible for a modern read. So, I have it on my phone right now.
Yes.
Her dad, William Godwin, was like the original anarchist. So, people kind of hung out with them, and they're like, yeah, you guys have great ideas. You're amazing. They ended up pissing off their friends because they got married.
Yes.
And that was just to legitimize Mary. They still lived in separate houses because, I mean, that's an awesome idea. You're like next door to each other. You're like, I'll see you at dinner.
Yeah.
I'm going to do things I want to do. So they were married. Unfortunately, at this time, medicine wasn't where it is today. I mean, medicine technically today isn't where it was 20 years ago, which was... We'll go into that in a minute.
I mean, do you want to talk about the mortality crisis of
the
mothers?
fact that right now white women are 50% more likely to die in childbirth than their moms were, and if you're a woman of color, that goes up like 3/4.
Yeah. So we did it, guys. Everything's worse somehow.
Welcome to the U.S. Anyway. And then I'm gonna get murdered. Anyway,
by who?
I don't know. There are people who probably want to dox me. So Mary Shelley's mom died, as we said, 11 days, likely due to sepsis because her doctor probably didn't wash his hands. Mary learned how to read and write from her dad, and also from the fact that her dad had her trace the letters on her mom's tombstone.
I don't like that.
Like you do.
I don't like that.
Mary spent a lot of time at her mom's tombstone. That's kind of where she hung out and just went to go think, which, like, original goth girl, I'm there for it. She had a half-sister. Godwin was very big on the free love principle, so he had another daughter roughly about the same time that Mary was born, Claire Claremont, who lived with the family as well. there was a lot of weirdness other than the fact that Godwin was very big on the girls getting an education.
Yes.
He wanted to make sure that they had same access to education that men would, but just back off a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, he didn't want to make it too difficult for them, which is crazy. He ended up remarrying to a woman that absolutely hated her stepdaughters, had more kids. Godwin was not great with money, and they were broke a lot, but they were usually able to find loopholes legally to stay where they needed to stay. And he ended up getting this young gentleman from a wealthy family who was going to be his protege, named Percy Bysshe Shelley. Shelley was, like I said, from a very wealthy family. He got kicked out of Oxford for writing about atheism.
Yes, he did.
He was, by all accounts, kind of a dick. I know, we disagree.
It's not that I don't think that he was a dick. I just think that, I think that you ride him a little bit too hard. I think he's, by the standards of that time, so he's okay.
So he was like Lord Byron, but back it off a little
right,
bit. Yeah.
I'm not going to say he was a good person. I'm just saying, for the time, sure.
Well, Godwin also was very attracted to Percy Shelley's money. It wasn't necessarily he was a good writer, but he was like, hey, I know you come from a family, could you help me out a little bit? So consider Godwin super surprised when Mary Godwin is like, I'm going to run off with this guy. I know I'm 16. I know he's already married and has a kid. But it's fine, because we're living by your mom's principles.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't go over well.
I mean, it went okay for them.
They got cut off by both of their families, and so went on this weird whirlwind tour of Europe, where Mary may have seen Frankenstein's castle.
Probably didn't.
Probably didn't.
Probably did.
Probably did. May or may not have toured it, but that name would have stuck in her head.
Yes. Because it is a real place.
It is a real place. So Percy Shelley and Mary were super scandalous. They took Claire Claremont with them because she's like, I don't want to stay with our stepmom. She's a bitch.
Right.
And they ended up, probably all sleeping together at some point in time. Mary got pregnant. They had their daughter. Their daughter did not survive.
Yes.
They had to move all the time. Percy had creditors after him constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Mary would have to do things to try and make money.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up going to Geneva.
Yeah.
Shelley's wife Harriet killed herself.
And their unborn child.
Because she was pregnant, probably with Shelley's baby.
Yep. I mean, I didn't say he wasn't... This isn't a Tom Buchanan scenario. I just think that, for the time, yeah, whatever. I didn't say he was a hero.
So, he did love Mary. Mary loved him. They just have different concepts of how their marriage was going to go, because they ended up getting married after the death. Percy Shelley went on his magical mystery tour with one of his friends on a boat.
Yes, he did.
And there was a storm, and they died.
They did.
And nobody found the bodies for a few days.
This is true.
They washed up on shore.
Yes.
And Percy's friends were like, all right, well, we're going to cremate him.
We're going to do a Viking funeral.
Yeah.
Those were the words.
But his heart survived because it was very calcified. Which is weird for 29.
He probably had a genetic thing.
Yeah. So they brought the heart back to Mary Shelley, who kept it in a desk.
Yes.
And they found it wrapped in paper after she died.
Yes.
Which is really sad. So she's,
I think
for real, like the original goth girl. I kind of dig it.
I think it's kind of romantic.
So Mary got no credit for editing her husband's work. Everybody thought when the book Frankenstein first came out, that Shelley had written it.
Mm-hmm.
That got clarified shortly after, and then I want to say it was a decade or so later, William Godwin paid for the book to be republished with Mary's name on the cover.
Yes.
Because it was originally published anonymously with an intro by Shelley. Towards the end of her life, Mary unfortunately mostly wrote just to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Her health was not awesome. She ended up dying of a brain tumor when she was 53. Why did they all die of, like, really sad things?
I mean, what did you want? For her to be 105 and pass away quietly at her desk?
Yes. Okay,
This
anyway.
isn't Old Yeller. Calm down.
Did we have to read this in school? No, but I really wish I had. I did read it, I want to say, like, freshman year of college for fun.
Yeah, also no, but I read it for fun. I read an illustrated version when I was a kid, and then the real thing probably in high school.
All right.
Resources.
There's a lot of resources. There is an incredible book called Making the Monster, The Science Behind Mary Shelley's Frankenstein by Catherine Harkup.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely recommend it because it is part biography, but it's also a lot about the science.
Yes.
So if you're looking for the influences and things like that, it's
More
gonna help you out.
galvanism.
So much galvanism. Romantic Outlaws, The Extraordinary Lives of Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley by Charlotte Gordon is incredible if you want to know about her mom and her.
Yes.
And a lot of the parallels that their lives had. Monster, She Wrote, which we already mentioned, The Woman Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson.
I have that one on my wish list.
It's really good.
Duly noted.
Thug Notes Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Because Crash Course, there are 2 parts to the Frankenstein, and they're both great.
I think part 1's better than part 2.
Okay, that's fair. From watching it, that is fair. But they're both.
So we didn't talk about this. I think we need to do a whole mini episode about this. Is authorial intent. So John Green really hates autobiographical readings, and I get it. He's an author that's alive, and he writes a lot of books geared toward teenage girls. So he already has to be very, very careful about separating himself from his work. How the fuck ever? I do not think you can separate Mary Shelley from this book.
No, you can't. I don't think there's
I don't
any
think
way.
you can.
I don't think Percy Shelley could have written this. I
No.
don't think Byron could have written this. Claire Claremont sure as hell couldn't have written this.
Well, not even from that angle. I don't think that you can, knowing about the death of her child, or like that, all the things that she saw, you cannot remove the bones of Mary Shelley from Frankenstein. You can't. So even as an author, I get resisting those biographical readings, but John Green's inordinate hatred of it really turns me off in that second part of Crash Course 2. So
definitely watch the first part.
Yeah, the first part where it talks about it as a synopsis is really, really good. I'm not going to say don't watch part 2, but that really bothers me. And again, I get it. He's been trying to distance himself from his work forever. Because it always does read a little gross.
If you're reading it from an adult perspective.
Well, then he's a 40-year-old man who writes teenage romance. Yeah, it's a little gross. I get it.
Looking for Alaska just came out on Hulu, and I can't watch it because that's the only book that I've ever finished and thrown across the room while crying.
So I'm honestly going to say this. I don't like John Green as an author.
Really? I like his stuff, but I have to be in a certain place to read it because otherwise it's hysterics.
I like him as a media critic for the most part, but as an author, no. And I'm completely in that camp of I think it's a little bit gross that you write teenage romance. I don't think that he's a bad person for it, because there was that Tumblr thing for a while, ooh, what if he's gross? No, I don't. I mean, I know he loves his wife, but yeah, I do think it's a little bit icky that that's the sandbox you want to hang out in. I do think that that's red flag on the field.
But not as many as oh my gosh, Edward Rochester?
Yeah, definitely not that many.
5 flags on the field.
Yeah, definitely not that many, but yeah, I don't really like him as an author very much. Shocker.
Their History Channel, back when they did history and not just aliens and Nazis.
What is the problem, though?
I love it.
Thank you.
I'm not even mad.
And Swamp People.
I love Swamp People.
I hate Swamp People.
They had a really good thing on Mary Shelley. You can actually find it on YouTube for free. Or if you have the History Channel app, you can watch it there.
Yes.
Mary Shelley from 2018 was really good. They took a lot of liberties, though, with how things came about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that unless you've read a biography of Mary Shelley, you may be kind of why is that happening? I'm that annoying person who stops it and goes, okay, and looks at my husband and goes, so at this time period.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not even watching this with you.
So there is one resource I'd like to add.
Yeah.
Dark Matters, Twisted But True did a great episode on galvanism. And it's a little bit more, well, no, I think it's the appropriate amount of grotesque, but watch that. It's probably on YouTube.
And Monstrum was really good too.
Okay, Monstrum, we need to have a conversation. It feels like right before every episode we release, you do a video, and unfortunately, your videos are better than ours. So,
I mean, we're trying. This is technically our first video, so if you don't count the phone one that died.
So my wig is still on my head. You're not taking my wig, and I will not let you take my wig. But also, please marry me. Thank you.
Also, we already discussed Drunk History, which I'll try to put a link
Oh, the Drunk History is very good.
So good.
I think I sent that to you, didn't I?
I had watched it before.
Yes, and I was like, just slide that.
Because Hulu is amazing, and so I just sit there and like put Drunk History on.
How are you enjoying the Hulu Live?
I love it. I love it so much.
We share Hulu Live now.
And then like I'm watching Paranormal Caught on Camera, and I'm like,
oh, Paranormal Caught on.
And half of it, I'm like, I don't really want to watch this because I believe aliens exist. But then there's other times I'm like, yeah, make that haunted doll move, and it's.
Oh God, I ended up catching it was like some of those weird like travel ghost shows, and it's like, now we're gonna visit America's most haunted fort in San Antonio. I'm like, nope.
No.
Apparently, I think it's the Alamo.
Supposedly.
The most haunted?
I don't think.
Wouldn't it be like San Juan?
I think the Alamo is just the most famous. So.
Yeah.
Jason's gonna be mad at us. We're like away from the mics this whole time.
Okay.
I love you, Jason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love you too, Sensei, but look, this wig is very hot. We have no fans. Except for this one, which can only do so much.
Now I want the one that says Madam will do. Anyway,
November is our birthday month for the podcast.
It is also what we have chosen to make it be is Pain Month. We are picking the worst.
The books that hurt us the most.
We're picking the books that made us want to throw them across the room, and our first
is my least favorite. Mm-hmm. Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton.
It's painful.
It's awful. It might be one of the underneath the George Takei internment camp musical. He made an internment camp musical.
I didn't know it was a musical.
He made an internment camp musical. It's.
I'm afraid.
It might be one of the worst things. Knowing that it's George Takei, it's like, okay, you get a very soft pass.
Do you get to go, oh my.
I wish I cared about it that much to even do that. So we're going to read my least favorite book from high school. It was either that or A Separate Piece.
I had a teacher.
Okay, you know what?
10th grade teacher made us read that. Gave everybody a failing grade on our first attempts at essays and said, I will teach you how to write an essay. And then I got an A and she kept mine.
So, should we each do a separate on like a secondary least favorite? Because I could do a whole other video on A Separate Piece and not make you have to read it again.
It's just the leg break thing. Like, what?
Not gay.
The not gay. What else do I hate other than... I mean, can I tell them what mine is?
Yeah.
So...
Put it out into the atmosphere and they'll hold us accountable.
I hate The Scarlet Letter more than probably any book of all time.
We're reading that one after.
So I have to think of another one now.
Yeah.
To put there too, but... Okay,
cool. November's Pain Month. If you'd like to send us gifts for our 1-year anniversary, I look forward to it. We will, as of November 3rd, been doing this for an entire calendar year.
Which is a little frightening.
Yeah, it is. It is. And here we are in wigs in a very, very hot room.
Yes, it's this is the library. It's really hot, and
I've been denied a fan.
Yes.
Outside of the one that works with my own wrists.
So, if you want to see us on social media, we're on Unfortunately Required Reading on Facebook.
Yes.
Unfortunately RR on Twitter.
350 freaking followers. Thank all of you. When we get to 500, we'll give something away.
Unfortunately Required on Instagram. Come follow me. I put things up that are weird.
Including the Buddha?
Yes.
The Buddha Gouda. Should we tell the story of the Buddha Gouda?
Yes.
So I went to Whole Foods getting the unaged goat.
Which we need to eat.
I mean, we will. It's weird eating in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And they had a Buddha Gouda, which was a really, really orange Gouda with a black wax rind. And it's like, haha, that's not how Gouda is pronounced. It's how to... That pun only works if you pronounce the fucking cheese wrong.
I get this message at 11 in the morning that's with that, and I'm like, all right.
That's the kind of person I am.
We also have our website, unfortunatelyrequiredreading.com, where
Yes.
we link everything else.
We sure do.
If you want to suggest a book or, have a really funny story about your English class or just want to tell us that we're not bad, we're at unfortunatelyrequiredreading@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Now, please just read literally any book.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!